In 1984, major flooding resulted in the closure of the Cootamundra to Batlow rail branch, much to the locals' dismay. Today, a section of the line from Tumut to Batlow is being revitalised as a tourist railway by the Mountain High Railway Company.
15 hours on, winding down my skull, rattling in my bed, way up high, mountain high.
The first official reference to the Gundagai branch was on the 29th of July 1874, when the Engineer-in-Chief, Mr. John Whitten, notified the Commissioner that as soon as surveyors could be spared from the main South Line survey, surveys would be commenced. In January 1875, a surveyor was sent, and by April the field work was more or less completed, the route on the main being that which was eventually constructed. In April 1881, Parliament authorised the construction of the line and tenders were called. 8 were received and the lowest, by McSharry and Company, was accepted. The date for completion was the 30th of July 1885, but the line was not opened until the 1st of June 1886. The original contract put the Gundagai station 3/4 of a mile out of town, and upon the representations of the local residents, the government agreed to lay the 3/4 of a mile track to the town so that the station would actually be in the town and would be part of the Gundagai to Tumut contract. The extension of the line from Gundagai to Tumut was first suggested in August 1883 when a survey was approved. The survey was completed in December 1884, the length being 31 miles. In December 1892, after much governmental discussion and many alternate proposals, it was decided to amend the original survey, and this was completed in 1894. The great item of expense with the line was the Gundagai Bridge, which consists of one 200 feet and two 66 feet steel spans over the floodplain. The earthworks for the railway were commenced in February 1901, and 2 to 3 miles of track were laid. The line was closed in 1984 and remained intact until quite recently, when a tragic bushfire destroyed much of the farmland around the line. The State Rail Authority gave permission for the farmers to lift track for use as fence posts, and so all hopes of reopening the line faded. The only fragments of the once busy railway between Cootamundra and Tumut which will survive is the rail bridge at Gundagai, which is to be preserved by the Gundagai Historic Bridges Committee.
It opened in 1903. The railway originally came to Gundagai in 1886. But up around Tumut, they were wanting the railway to be continued on. The only thing stopping them was the floodplain across here and the necessity for a bridge. Thus, the present bridge as we see it now, that was completed in 1903, and the railway then proceeded on. I worked on the road bridge from 1968 to 1977. At the same time, they were doing an upgrading of the railway bridge, and the two gangs worked pretty much in with one another. There were some incidents just where we are now. Down on the flat there was a lot of chooks that used to lay their eggs just anywhere at all. And we were replacing piles in Morley's Creek, which is just below where I'm sitting. And I was in the boat with 2 of our machinists. We were about to replace a pile down there, and we were bombarded with these rotten eggs. And there wasn't 1 or 2, there was hundreds of them. The smell was so bad, we all had to go home and have a shower and change our clothes. It was really crook. The traffic bridge has now had quite a lot of work done. It's been classified by the National Trust, and the Gundagai Historical Bridge Society has been formed. It's envisaged in the future that they'll take over the rail bridge and it's hoped to be able to run a light train from here across to South Gundagai and back for the tourist across the rail bridge.
Little information is available about the reasons for the construction of the railway between Tumut and Batlow, as departmental records of this period have been destroyed and only headings of papers have been retained in register books. In 1916, a proposal was put forward for a 2-feet gauge railway from Mount Horeb to Batlow, and this was revised in 1970. The first reading of the Gilmore to Batlow Railway Bill was made in 1919. The line was opened on the 17th of December 1923 and in the first year of operation lost £42,000. Right from the start of operation, only locos of the Z19 class of 1877 were used due to the tortuous nature of the line, consisting of 5 chain curves and 1 in 25 grades. The service to the Kunama extension was suspended in February 1957. The last passenger train was run in March 1962, and from that time until the line's closure was operated by the 48 class and on rare occasions 49 class diesel-electric locomotives.
The line to Tumut, in my opinion, should never have been closed, but it was just done over time, and we all think it was done on purpose to get rid of the traffic so that they could close, you know, that then the first excuse they got, they could close it. I think it was a good business line, you know, and maybe not good paying line, but a good business line, plenty of work. And I think they'd be better than running trucks, but that's the way they decided to do it, so that's the way it is. Good. It was hard, but it was a good line to work on. It was pretty heavy work, like pretty hard work, but still, I was younger in them days, and it wasn't too bad. Probably the hardest work of the lot was probably for the cleaners who had to coal the engines by hand just with a shovel. When they'd do 3 trips to Batlow and 1 to Kunama, they'd come back with the tender empty, and probably be about 3 hours just solid shovelling to coal it up. We had one driver who used to like fishing, and when he'd finish of an afternoon, he'd take off down the Kunama line, down the Gilmore Creek to catch a few fish. He used to drive the A-class down there, so about 3 miles to fish. We had one case where they ran out of water up there, and they bucketed enough water out of a tank alongside the line, which I don't know how many hours it took, but they got enough water to get to Batlow anyway, but because none of that was shown, that was all squared up on the sheets and that. And we also had a fireman that got himself a nice, about a 4-pound trout. He saw it in the shallow water when he was going over Werriboldra Bridge, so he grabbed a hunk of coal and hit this trout, and about 4 pounds it was, a beautiful, beautiful fish. I don't know whether it's legal or not to catch them that way, but... Another thing about the curves on the line, that although they were heavy going up the hill, they also assisted in braking coming down the hill, so it was good that the curves were there in some respects, but they made it pretty heavy going up. Mostly we'd go up to Batlow and probably do 1 or 2 trips back down the hill, or 1 trip back down the hill in the afternoon, then 1 trip back down the hill in the morning to Werriboldra, and then plus 1 to Kunama, and then we'd come back to Tumut the next afternoon. The fruit used to grow pretty close. You could reach out and get an apple as you went past. And the passengers used to often reach out and, you know, you'd grab an apple and just toss it back to them in the carriage. It's a shame it's closed, but, you know, with Mountain High getting it going, it'll be good.
On Friday, the 30th of December 1988, the Mountain High Railway Company carried its first paying passengers, exactly 3 years and 2 weeks after first inquiring about the use of the line. This train was operated by a small diesel hydraulic locomotive built by Clyde in New South Wales for the Department of Defence. It is the only one out of 43 built at that time to be of the standard gauge, and 2 open cars which had been converted from sheep trucks. Recently, they bought 2 former SRA R cars. Now, Now, they were built in 1915 and used on the Caves Express. They are both in original condition. One is fitted out in Queensland maple and the other in cedar and brass. Also recently arrived is their new, larger locomotive, the former BHP loco, the D10. This loco has a much greater pulling power than the Little Clyde, though due to low gearing, the D10 is only capable of a maximum speed of 18.5 miles per hour. Under construction is a large passenger carriage of their own design, allowing for a wide view while still being protected from the elements.
As far back as I can remember, I've always had an interest in railways, and I've been involved in a number of railway projects, including some, probably the most interesting one was the Waratah Park one, Skippy Park at Duffy's Forest, which was a 2-foot gauge thing. I carried 1 million passengers on that in 10 years and didn't hurt any of them. Learnt an enormous amount about the basics of track work, the geometry of wheels, wheel flanges, and generally how railways worked. And that was learnt by things going wrong and having to fix them. From that point, there was always a search for a location, a good site to do something else. And one of the desires then was to use a standard gauge disused railway line. So approaching the State Rail, we got permission to explore all the disused lines in the state. And we looked at a number of them. They were, for various reasons, unsuitable or not allowed. And finally, in more or less ritual searching, or regular searching, we came across this one on the point of being demolished partly, and we succeeded in gaining approval to go ahead. We had to approach the top level of the SRA management. I approached David Hill in the first instance, and he referred me to probably about number 4 in the hierarchy of the State Rail Authority. And after a 20-minute of debacle, we finally convinced the chap that we were able to do something with this line on the basis that we used diesel and not steam. They'd apparently had a lot of trouble with endless suggestions about people wanting to use steam on their lines, and that was the clincher when we convinced them we'd be using diesel. What we've been doing is working on marketing, the acquisition of rolling stock, the repair of the track and bridges, culverts and things like that. We've been building up our personnel to run the place. We've set up our infrastructure of administration, got our accounting procedures sorted out for all the statutory requirements, the legal requirements. All of those things have been under development simultaneously. It's been a danger to develop any one of them beyond the others, so that you suddenly have, say, a perfect train with inadequate track and no accounting procedures. So we've had to bring all the things along simultaneously, and our stage of progress now is that we are operating out to Werribalda, that's halfway to Batlow. And quite likely within a couple of weeks we'll be carrying our first passengers all the way to Batlow. Now that means on trains that haven't been refurbished, they haven't been repainted, they have been checked out and mechanically they're in good order. The track is in good order, although there's still work to do in embellishing it and tidying it up. So we've got an endless program of improvements, although we're actually carrying people and we've got a cash flow now. Patronage has been quite a lot better than we expected in our first year of operation. Total numbers of people, we've probably carried about 3,500 passengers since the beginning of January this year. The future direction that we have in mind is to really polish the act, to use the vernacular. Trains all newly painted and freshly cleaned. We've got a steam cleaner now for cleaning purposes. We want to finish painting our office here. We want to repaint all the stations. We want to replace station buildings at Windowie and Werribalda and rebuild a new station at Wyballina, which is at the top of the hill. And all of those are going to take a lot of time. They'll be done on a priority basis, one by one. After that, our hope is to start generating an adult education facility where we can bring people down and give them work in basic trades like blacksmithing, wheelwrighting, leather work, and as an example of what we're aiming to do, we want to set up a course in timber work, a parallel course in metal work, and a third parallel course in glass work, so that we can actually train people to in enough skills, at the end of which all those three streams will be brought together to produce an observatory up at Batlow. And from that point we can then start looking at the stars and the moon, and then there'll be physics lectures and that sort of thing for adults and children alike.
The railway is now operating all the way to Batlow. Between running trains, restoration of the track and rolling stock is continued by the staff of the railway. General maintenance of sleepers, track and rolling stock is an ongoing and important facet of the company. The Mountain High Railway Company is a profitable concern. The future of this beautifully scenic and tortuous line appears in safe hands.
Wrecking round a bend, screaming through the curves, we'll get there in the end. How high? Mountain high. Take me for a ride, shut me to the peak, lift me off my feet. Mountain high, real high.